Hello everyone and welcome back to another album review. And in this video I'm going to review TYRON by Slowthai. This is the sophomore full-length album of UK rapper Slowthai after the release of his highly praised debut 2 years ago, Nothing Great About Britain, an album where I saw a rapper with huge potential, some really great deliveries on this album and some really interesting stuff in terms of production and sound. However, the debut by itself I felt it was a pretty average album. Unfortunately, I couldn't really resonate with it as much as most people. However, I was anticipating for a new work from Slowthai because even if I felt that the debut was kind of average for my taste and it didn't really click with me all that much, I was pretty sure that he would be able to do something promising, and I think that he delivers pretty well with the sophomore album. In my opinion, TYRON is an improvement. It's a really solid album for the most part when it comes to UK hip hop with some trap instrumentation. I think that when it comes to the music, this album is much more compelling. What really sold me for this album was actually the track Cancelled featuring Skepta, which was actually a title for a track that I was like really curious as of why would he decide to do this, because in the past he was about to be cancelled with some of the controversies that happened with the Enemy Awards, which looking back at it, yeah, it was a pretty bizarre situation, so it would feel bizarre why he would touch upon the subject of cancellation. But other than that, cancel is by far my favorite thing out of this whole project, and definitely one of my favorite things I've heard from Slowthai. This track has a really sick banging instrumental to it. While it's pretty short, I like the way the track flows. It has a really nice introduction, but we get pretty early into the second phase of the song with a beat switch and a different melody, which in my opinion is far more compelling and far better compared to the first one, so I really like this change of pace and how the track progresses after this point. The only thing that I would mostly call an issue with this song is that it doesn't really feel that much of like a Slowthai song. It feels more of like a Skepta song, because Skepta actually dominates this track. Slowthai has just a verse, but the hook and pretty much the majority of the song, it's just Skepta, so it feels more like a Skepta track featuring Slowthai. But other than that, I feel that this is a really solid song with a really nice banging and aggressive attitude to it, which is something that is mostly the case with the first half of this album, because this is a pretty short project with some pretty short tracks. It is separated into different portions. In the first one we get the more aggressive and more banging side with some really solid trap instrumentations, and in my opinion we get some of the greatest deliveries out of Slowthai. When he goes into those more aggressive routes, this is where I like Slowthai the most, and so in my opinion it makes for some really nice tracks at the beginning. 45 Smoke, it's a really solid introduction with a really solid beat to it. MAZZA featuring A$AP Rocky was a track that took me a while to resonate with it, because I felt that the production and the beat to it was kinda basic, but the hook of this thing is pretty infectious. I like the melody and I think that the track overall and the deliveries are pretty solid. We also have Vex, definitely one of my favorite tracks when it comes to the instrumentals. It is a really good trap song. It is really banging, really aggressive. I would just want more out of it, which is what I would say would be the issue with the first side of this album, is its length, because this is much shorter compared to the second side, and we get some extraordinary ideas that I would love to see them being further developed, because some of those occasions feel pretty short and I just want more out of them. Like the track What, for example, such a promising tune, but it's less than a minute. And the one track that I would say I like the least out of the first side is Play With Fire, but it's still really good. And overall I like the majority of the first side. I think that it really fits with the overall aesthetic that I get from the deliveries of Slowthai. It makes for some of his greatest moments in my opinion. On the second half though, we get a much more different approach. This is where Slowthai would get into some more standard UK hip hop approaches, and with some few elements of conscious hip hop and R&B in some occasions. There is such a different vibe on the second half, since we get some more laid-back tracks, and much more soothing deliveries and instrumentals, which I don't really know how to feel about this. Because for me personally, this is not as good as the first side, and it doesn't have the same amount of highlights. It's never bad, but it's certainly more forgettable, for me at least. I was pretty underwhelmed how the second side started with the track I Tried. For me, this is definitely my least favorite moment out of this album, but the rest of the track listing picks up after this point. My favorite one out of the second side would be the track Terms, featuring Dominic Fike and Denzel Curry. In my opinion, this one has the greatest instrumental and some really nice sampling choices. And when it comes to the features, I think they work pretty good. I actually don't have a complaint about any of the features on this album. I think that it's actually one of the strongest characteristics of this album. Sure, Slowthai does his own thing and he's pretty good at it, but I feel that the features are pretty solid as well for the most part. Like the track Feel Away, for example, I really enjoyed the James Blake and Mount Kimby features on this thing. As far as the instrumental was not that much amazing in my opinion, I still feel that the deliveries were pretty decent. But yeah, this is the one approach that I don't feel that it works that amazingly for Slowthai. The results could have certainly been worse, but I still do not resonate with this as much, as I feel that he's much more comfortable with his more aggressive and intense side, which actually makes for some of the greatest stuff I've ever heard from Slowthai that are contained in this project. Also, I would say part of the issue is how inconsistent the two sides feel like. The way it transitions from the one side to the next, I don't see that much of the connection between them. I would also prefer for the two sides to be swifted. I would much prefer for an album to leave a solid impression at the end rather than start with a strong impression. It's not that it cannot happen, but it really does. I really like though the way he teased the tracks, because he started teasing some of the more soothing ones like Feel Away and then NHS, and then he teased MAZZA and Cancelled, which gave a really interesting double approach on how the album will go. In general, despite not feeling the second side as much as the first, I still pretty much enjoyed this album. I still feel that this is an improvement compared to his debut, and I'm certainly excited to see what he does next. This is a pretty interesting hip-hop project with some nice features, some nice deliveries, and some pretty intriguing instrumentals. A really interesting rap album for 2021 so far. I'm going to give TYRON a 7- out of 10. What's your opinion on this album? Like it, dislike it, why, and what do you want me to review next time? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.